Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It has been the longest time since I last uploaded a video, and here I am sitting in a new background and I am filming a video for you all, which I'm just so ecstatic to be doing this. I thought, what a better way to start my kind of new channel and come back to my channel with a monthly reading wrap up. Now, you guys will probably tell by like my channel banner, sort of the vibe of this video, that is definitely not something that I would have usually uploaded. I usually go for the fashion, the beauty sort of content. However, my content is going to be changing a little bit and it's going to be mainly books and lifestyle, which is definitely more me, I find. And although I will probably still be bringing some of these sorts of videos on this channel, like beauty, like makeup related videos and stuff, I'll be concentrating more on the sort of lifestyle aspect of things. So I'm really excited for you guys to be joining me today. As I said, I'm going to be taking you guys through all the books that I read for the month of March, which I cannot believe that we already are the end of March. As I'm filming this, it's the 31st of March and tomorrow is obviously the 1st of April, which means it's April Fool's Day. So watch out guys. It's April Fool's Day tomorrow. So yeah, I am so excited. If you are new to my channel, then hi, my name is Luce. I would love you guys to join me by clicking the subscribe button down below and also turning on the little bell. That will just notify you every single time I upload a new video. And if you are someone that has already watched many of my videos before, hi, welcome back. And I would love for you guys to stick around even if you have been from my previous Instagram account. But my new Instagram is _books_with_Luce, so I would love for you guys to go check that out. Instead of me rambling on for another god knows how long, I'm going to show you guys all the books I read for this month. Also, if you can hear any background noise, it's the hail. We have really bad weather here in the UK at the moment, and it's gone from being really warm and spring-like to being really rubbish and cold, and it was snowing this morning and now there's a hailstorm, so that's great. These are the books that I've read this month. Now, I typically read about 4 books a month, so that's kind of like a book a week, which to me is perfect. I don't know how people can read more than that. Like, some people read like 20 books in a month. I just don't know how people can do that. Like, the last 3 books that I read probably within the space of 2 weeks. I had a bit of a rocky start to the month of March. Now, I began reading People We Meet on Vacation, which I have heard so much about, and it's a rom-com. You know, it's like a really popular BookTok book. However, I just couldn't get on with it. I got to over like a page 100, I think, and I just didn't get on with it. I kind of didn't finish reading it. Then I went on to starting the Folk of the Air series. Now, I took this book recommendation after watching Hayley Pham's January reading wrap up. I think it was her January one. And I began with The Cruel Prince, which is the first book in the trilogy, and I fell in love with it. I absolutely love the book. Now, fantasy isn't usually a genre that I typically pick up. This was definitely a new read for me, a new genre, definitely something that was out of my comfort zone. However, I read this in the space of a week, and that is probably like really quick for me to read a book, like in the time frame. And I was reading this whilst I was in France and I absolutely loved it. I've highlighted some quotes that I've really enjoyed in it, and I just think that if you are new to the fantasy genre, this is definitely a book that you should pick up. My aim was to finish the trilogy this month, however that didn't really happen. I read up to page 80 in The Wicked King, which is the second book of the trilogy, and I just couldn't get on with it, and I found that a lot of people didn't get on with it either. So I kind of stopped it and I was like, okay, maybe I just need to pick up a murder mystery. It's just gonna sort of give me that break between fantasy. And as I said, this is my first time that I've read fantasy fiction, so for me I needed something in the middle to kind of almost relax my brain. I have to concentrate so much when reading these books, So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna pick up a different book and see how I get on with it. It turns out I obviously finished the murder mystery, went on to read another 2 books, and now I'm starting to read The Wicked King again. And I'm on page like 130, so hopefully next month we'll have the update on The Wicked King and hopefully like the rest of the trilogy. But this was a 5-star read for me. I really enjoyed it. I loved Jude, who is like the main sort of person in this. Basically, Jude has 2 sisters and they live in the like mortal world, so like the real world. And then one day this man called Maddox comes to their family home and kills like the 2 parents. By the way, this isn't a spoiler, this is literally like the back of the book. And he kills like the 2 parents and then takes the girls away to Fairyland, which is like the land that they live in. It's called Elfheim, and it's like obviously like a fantasy world. It's really cool. And then Jude tries to, you know, sort of fit in with this like fairy world. It's very weird. People are really like kind of cautious about her. She's kind of the most like outgoing of her sisters, and she then meets Prince Cardan, who is the kind of I think he's the 3rd son of the king of like Fairyland, basically, like the High King Eldred. I think that's his name. Ignore if I get the names wrong. And then all of a sudden, you know, things happen with Cardan, and obviously just leads into the 2nd book basically. But it's so good and I honestly do recommend this. So many people love this trilogy and I think that it's a really good book to start you off in the fantasy world. This is a YA fantasy, so it's definitely a lot more kind of tame than some of the other fantasy books that you could pick up. So yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. I would 100% recommend this book. So as my break between the kind of fantasy book, I decided to pick up the 1st book of the Sophie Hannah like sort of Poirot like retelling, I suppose. This is called The Monogram Murders. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Sophie Hannah, she is a huge Agatha Christie fan, as I am. I love Agatha Christie. She is probably one of my favourite classic authors. I love her so much. I love Poirot. He's definitely my favourite like detective to read about. Any murder mystery, if I'm unsure of what murder mystery to pick up, you can guarantee that an Agatha Christie will be in my hand. But basically Sophie Hannah has just done this retelling of Poirot and I think it's really cool. Now, not a lot of people like the kind of series, however I really enjoy it. So at the beginning of the year I read The Killings at Kingfisher Hill, which was actually the 4th book in the series. I didn't realise that it was kind of a series, although it's not really a series that you need to read in order. Like, they are standalone books. However, on Goodreads it just says like number 1, number 2, number 3 and number 4. And then when I went to review my book and basically say that I was reading it on Goodreads, it turned out that The Killings of Kingfisher Hill was the 4th book. And then I went on to read and then I went on to purchase the other 3 books. So I picked up this one, which is actually one of my favourite stories. I really liked the way that it was kind of set out. So we follow Edward Catchpole, who's actually Poirot's detective friend from Scotland Yard, and he actually writes it in, well, Sophie Hannah has written it as the 1st person perspective, but from Catchpole's point of view, which is really cool. And then he sort of tells the story of like how the you know, how the murder went and how Poirot like detected it and like all this sort of stuff. And basically what happens in this one is there's a girl called Jenny who interrupts him whilst he's having a supper, and he's very particular about his supper. He goes to this place like every Thursday at the same time, has the same thing. The waitresses and waiters get to know him and all this sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden this young woman sort of comes in, rushing in, claiming that she is going to be killed. So obviously with his detective head, he's like, okay, well, what's gonna happen? Like, we need to find out what's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden he gets this like, well, it's not a phone call because it's set in like the late 20s, I want to say, early 30s. He learns that there are 3 guests at the Bloxham Hotel that are murdered, but the weird thing about these murders is that each of them have a monogrammed cufflink in their mouth when found dead. So it's kind of the mystery of obviously him trying to find out the meaning behind these cufflinks and what the monogram means and all this sort of stuff. And the story is so good. I'm obviously not going to say anything or like spoil it if you're interested in reading this, but I do really recommend it. Like, as I said, if you're an Agatha Christie fan and you want to read more Poirot and you haven't got enough of all the other Agatha Christie books, I 100% recommend this. It's obviously not Agatha Christie, like, I'm sorry, but nobody will beat the queen of murder mystery fiction. I'm sorry, but she is the top draw, okay, the top. Nobody will beat Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile or any of the other like famous Poirots, okay, but this is actually really good. I'm really excited to read the other two. The other two are called Closed Casket and The Mystery of Three Quarters. I was looking over there because they're on my shelf, but yeah, so I really recommend this if you're looking for like a Poirot retelling. And yeah, I think I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. Next book, which I am so proud of myself for reading this month. I thought the day would never come, and it did. Basically, last year I read the first 2 books of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson, and I love this series. It's my favourite YA series, like murder mystery series. If you're unfamiliar with the story, it's basically about a girl called Pip Fitz-Amobi, and she is writing her EPQ, which is basically a thing that you write in 6th form. It's kind of like an additional exam. It's just like a long essay and you can base it on any subject that you wish. And she wants to write her EPQ on a murder that has occurred in her little village, and she finds that the person that was accused was wrongly accused, basically. So she wants to discover the true story of it, and then that's how the first book goes, and then somebody goes missing in the second book, and then this one, which is As Good as Dead, which is probably the chunkiest book I have read. I think this is, hang on, it's 551 pages. I started to read this book at the beginning of the year and I got to about page 100 and I didn't want to finish it. I have this thing where I never want to read the last book of a series because I don't want the series to end, and this was very much the case. I didn't want to say goodbye to Pip, I didn't want to say goodbye to Ravi, so I just had been putting it off for the longest time, and I saw so many people talking about it that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to read it. If not, I'm gonna accidentally read a spoiler and then it's just gonna ruin the whole thing for me. So this is the last book, as I have mentioned, and it's basically like her last investigation. But the last investigation literally happens for like half the book, and then the rest of the book is how she deals with what happened. Now obviously if I tell you what happened, it's going to completely ruin the book for you, so I'm not. But we also get to see a lot of like Pip's PTSD from her other cases that she solved and everything that went on in the previous 2 books. And I think that was so special, is that we really got to see how Pip was feeling about everything that sort of happened. So I just feel like I can't say much about this because, as I said, this is the last book, so you have to really read the first 2 books to understand what's going on in this book. They're not standalone books, so please don't just rush into this book. You have to read the first 2. And yeah, it's just so good, and I'm so glad I read it because now I can talk to everybody about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's one of those series that I will always recommend to people. As I said, I read the first 2 books last year. They were both 5 stars, and this was another 5 stars. Overall, it was 15 stars for the 3 books. I think Holly Jackson just hits it on the head with YA murder mystery. Just amazing. She's an incredible writer, and I really hope one day that this gets turned into a TV series. I feel like the casting would be excellent. I feel like seeing it in its real action would be incredible. So Holly Jackson, if you ever watch this, you know, maybe put this into a series because it would be incredible. Last book I read this month. Now, I feel like everybody's gonna hate me for what I'm about to say about this book, because it is one of those books that everyone and their mother has seen or read or heard about, okay, and this author. I just didn't love it as much as everybody else has loved it, and I didn't cry. I'm sorry. The last book I read this month was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, don't get me wrong, Colleen Hoover is a beautiful writer. She has a way with words, oh my god. I love her style of writing. If you are looking for a fast pace, like new adult romance, this is the book for you. There are some seriously harsh topics that go on. I will put a trigger warning on screen of all the like topics that it covers. Obviously it's then up to you whether or not you go ahead and read the rest of this book. I know that Hoover actually does discuss a lot of very difficult subjects. However, the way that she wrote it was incredible. It's such a powerful story, and you will fall in love with the characters in this book, and that is why I did give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the characters. I loved Lily Bloom, I loved Ryle, and I loved Atlas. And I'm so excited for It Starts With Us, because I just want to see more of Atlas's story. And I really hope we get to see, you know, like his life before he met Lily. And I just think that'd be so special. And I tell you what, the last page, like the last sentence of this book, I didn't cry. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm the first person to cry at a book. Like I cried at As Good As Dead, because that was the end of a series. I cried at The Seven Husbands. I cried at, what else did I cry at? I'm sure I cried at something else, like a recent read, maybe, I don't remember. But this was the most poignant like book to read on this topic, and it's really quite eye-opening and jaw-dropping to see what can go on behind closed doors, literally. So yeah, I'm not gonna say anything else about it because I just think you need to read it. Now, the one thing that I'm grateful about is I went into this book not knowing anything about the actual storyline. I knew that it had like very harsh topics, and I knew that it was quite an emotional book to read. However, I didn't know anything about the characters. I didn't even know their names. I didn't even know like their sort of storyline, the plot, what happened, anything like that. And I think that's the best way to go into this book. There are so many people that have talked about this book, that have reviewed this book, you know, that have sort of said spoilers about this book, but I really do recommend you going into this book without knowing anything, which is why I'm not going to talk about it. However, I will read you the one quote that just sticks to you. Sometimes the one who loves you the most is the one who hurts you the most. And I just think, holy crap, wow. So yeah, this is by far a really good read of mine. As I said, the reason why I'll give you the reason why I rated it 4 stars. I didn't love the spicy scenes in there. Now I know it's a new adult romance. I understand that there's going to be, you know, really graphic spicy scenes in there. However, for me it was just too graphic. I don't enjoy continually reading about that. I don't mind the odd sort of, you know, the odd sort of phrase, but when it's really detailed, like this book, I'm sorry, but I just didn't like it. So for that reason, I did rate it 4 stars. However, the story itself, the characters, the setting, it's set in Boston is all I'm gonna tell you. But yeah, so overall I really like Colleen Hoover as a writer, and I'm so excited to see the rest of her work. I do have Ugly Love and Verity, and I am really excited to read both of those, so I feel like they could be some reads that I'll read next month. But yeah, so I would recommend this. As I said, would have put the trigger warnings on screen about, you know, the kind of topics that are discussed in this, but they're really important topics, and I think the way that she spoke about them was really beautiful. So those are the 4 books that I read this month, and I have to say I definitely read sort of like an array of genres. We went from fantasy to murder to romance. Just to put it out there, I'm very much a mood reader. Like, I don't typically like to plan what I'm gonna read that month. I kind of finish a book and then go stare at my bookshelf about half an hour and then see a book and I'm like, okay, I'll read that. I do try and switch up the genres as much as I can. I can be guilty of just reading murder mystery. Like, a couple of years ago I didn't really read that much, but the only books that I would read would be murder mystery. Murder mysteries, like, as ironic as it sounds, are like my comfort books. But yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I feel like it's definitely going to be a video that I'm going to do every month. Instead of doing like a monthly favourites, then I'll do like a monthly reading wrap up. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash the thumbs up and leave me a comment down below telling me what your favourite read of this month was. And if you would like to see more of my books, then definitely go ahead and check out my Instagram, which is _bookswithluce. And as I said at the beginning of the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.